is interested in that part, it's lot number 60 in your catalog. So if you page to lot number 60, we talked with Slade Acres and they don't have a problem with us being honest. So they'll bring the horse down and they're gonna kind of analyze the horse, tell you what they think about it. Obviously, we appreciate the American Road Horse and Pony Association, everybody involved, and we appreciate these guys coming out and helping us as well. I should say Melissa's in here too. So a big thank you for them to come out. They're going to do a little bit of education for us. I think they do 3 of these maybe a year. We do have, there's Chad Cole and obviously Jimmy Robertson. A lot of people, you guys seen Jimmy already. Melissa Moore, and then I think it's Steve Crabtree and Randy Harper, I believe it is. And so big thank you for them being here. I'm going to let Chad, he's the president, and I'm going to let him introduce himself and then pass the mic down. Each of them will introduce themselves and just a little bit about what they do, and then we'll bring the horse in. They'll talk a little bit about the horse. The horse will make a couple of rounds here. After we're done with this, they're going to be driving some show prospects. There's a couple of geldings mares that some of the guys have here that they're going to be driving on later on this evening, and the hope is just to have an enjoyable evening. Obviously this has become a sport. Some people like deer hunting, some people like fishing, and we like horses, so that's pretty much what it comes to. So I'm gonna let Chad kind of take over, and then I'll have a microphone on me, and I'll be out in the crowd, and the goal is then, if you guys have questions, we'll hand the microphone out to them and fire questions at them.
Thank you. Again, I'm Chad Cole. I'm the current president of the American Road Horse and Pony Association. I want to thank all you guys for having us today. We just want to kind of just let you know what we look for as show prospects and things like that. I currently own Signature Stables in Simpsonville, Kentucky, and I've trained road horses for, I can't tell you how long. One of my mentors, I actually worked for Jimmy Robertson, so he's one of my mentors. So, but yeah, I'll pass it over to Jimmy now, and we'll just go right down the line.
I'm Jimmy Robertson. I've been out here probably half a dozen times to your sale. We bought 4 horses out of here, and one of them was Divide and Conquer, who's a 2-time world grand champion and 1-time reserve world grand champion. We're proud of him, and we're proud to pick him up out of here. My father was a saddle horse trainer. I trained saddle horses for several years, and then we started training road horses, and now saddlebred and road horses. And now I guess you'd call it semi-retired. I'm not working any horses, but we're still handling an online auction and a public auction. In fact, just FYI, we're having a sale November 5th down in Shelbyville, Kentucky. June 5th. Wednesday of the Rock Creek Show. Come down to the sale and go to the show that night. Here's Melissa.
Hi, I'm Melissa Moore, and I have Sunrise Stables in Versailles, Kentucky, and I have road horses and saddlebreds and hackneys and some Dutch crosses. I've been training road horses for a long time. We've had a little bit of everything. We've had bike horses and under saddle horses and wagon horses, and just enjoyed the discipline greatly, and we're excited to be here. We have the horse Uncle Beeb, who came out of the sale I think about 4 or 5 years ago. He was a pretty cool horse, and we just bought a new one. They didn't come out of this sale though, but this is a great place to be, and we're glad to be here, and thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. My name is Steve Crabtree. I've trained saddle horses my whole life, and a few years ago, well, several years ago now, I'm older than I think I am, but several years ago I fell in love with standardbreds, and I've had a lot of road horses since, and as long as I'm able, I guess I will still have road horses. But this is one of the top sales in the country. We bought several nice horses out of this sale, and just seems like it just keeps getting better every year. I'm always excited to be here.
Hello, my name's Randy Harper. We have Harper Stables in Shelbyville, Kentucky with me and my wife, Vanessa. We've trained saddlebreds and hackney ponies and standardbred road horses. We have the current world champion road horse under saddle, the reserve reserve world champion road horse bike. And we've been in the business for all our life, and we're having a good time here. I'm definitely going to be back next year. This is my first year here. I'm definitely going to be back. So thank you.
Yes. Again, this is lot number 60 in the catalog. I don't know, do you guys have a catalog in front of you? And I don't know how much you guys go off of pedigree, but it'll be interesting what you guys talk about. But lot number 60 is by What a Workout, a Muscle Hill son, with a Malabar Man dam and a Cumin second dam. You guys can check it out in your catalog. I'll take this mic out. You guys can make your comments or whatever you want to on them, and I'll be out there if they have any questions.
Well, and it is just my personal opinion. This horse, I think he comes out of his shoulder real well just standing here. I think it looks like he has a nice headset. Of course, I have to see him move, but that's what I think.
Yeah, let him try maybe just a slow jog around there once, and let's see what the heart. Get after him. All right. Hi, David. Step you up a little more next trip back. When you come back, Dave, line up. Looks like a nice horse, guys. I think it's a consensus that we don't want to be critical. We think everything's in good order. Now just stop. Dave, we think that maybe the harness should be set back a little bit. If there's any problems, he stand good and stuff. Yep, absolutely. Let's uncheck him and maybe move the harness around a little bit. Y'all don't care.
Absolutely. One of the things I do when I put my harnesses on is that I use this on every horse, pony or horse. Will he stand here? Oh, yeah. When you put your back pad on, you can take your hand and put it right at the end of the withers, and you take your hand and spread it out like this. And where your thumb is where the back pad should go first. And that's where I put the back pad, right here. And then what I do first is I always tighten the turn back so this doesn't go forward, and then tighten the belly band, and everything else goes with it.
Let's let him the belly band down a little bit.
And you'll find out when you do this, it gives your horse a little bit better up front look. It does. It keeps the harness from riding up on their shoulders, like Melissa said. Tom Moore believed in that. And another thing you'll have to do too, you're going to have to readjust your overcheck. Probably a hole, each hole is an inch. So what you'll have to do is probably take it down an inch,
I think that one thing that has become very important is quality. This horse is a very pretty horse, and every division is a little different. We have ladies classes, which the horse, obviously we want them to have a lot more quality. Under saddle horses need to be a lot prettier, but quality really stands out in the show ring. He's a very handsome horse, very pretty, has a pretty neck and very fine, so that's something that will stand out in the show ring for us. And then everything else is speed, whether they can actually turn, go around a turn properly and engage their back end without sprawling behind or braking. But that's all part of training, and if they're able to do that. But just basically, I think personally, just looking at him, he's a beautiful specimen of what we like to see in a road horse.
Basically, though, moving that harness back like Randy did there, it just makes their neck look longer. I mean, you know, and the longer you can make them look like they got the more front end they have, the better they're going to look. And I tell you what, I think this is a really good individual, pretty horse, and got a good way of moving, tracks good behind. I tell you what, every horse that's ever been successful, racing, showing, it doesn't matter what it is, they had a trainer that believed in him. So I think that's a big plus if you get a horse that he's not going to make it unless you think he can.
Yes, let's go again. I think you can see where that harness is set, and it makes this horse's front end look a little nicer. Yeah. If his horse brings more money tomorrow, I want 10%.
If anybody has questions, I'm just going to be walking along here, and if you guys have questions, flag me down, and you guys can throw questions at him.
It can go back more. It can go back more. Yeah. But you guys, I think you understand what we're saying. And it'll take you 2 or 3 times to really, where if you put the same harness on the same horse all the time, you'll see where you can adjust it a whole lot better.
Hey, gentlemen, we had one question here.
I'd go up.
There's one question about, they were asking about the position of the martingales. If you guys set those, where do you like to have those?
It depends on the horse and how he wears his head. Those things are adjustable. So it's just whatever suits the horse. Basically, it's not really where you want it, it's where the horse wants to wear it.
One thing I like about this is what Dave is doing is, I don't see these little things you're supposed to put the martingales through. I think sometimes that can bind them up too much. And as I grew older and thinking I could use less martingale, I would not put it in that hole for any of my horses or ponies. Yeah, but I'm talking, no, but I don't like it to go in that little slot. It can, I think it can bind them up a little bit. I like it better like that, and that horse got enough range to him. I think it's a good thing to do. Come on down to the pretty good road gate, and then we won't keep you much longer, Dave.
And I can already see a difference. I already see a difference in that horse in where that harness is sitting back. He's up more. Oh, sorry, Steve. He's up more. It's actually changed his motion where it's out in front of him more. You know, I like a horse to be back up, like where this horse is setting up. If you looked at him on that back side, if you could see that little spot there, he looked really good. And coming around this turn, I'd like to see a horse kind of drop his shoulder into that turn and push off his back end coming around there. That's a different horse that this started with, in my opinion.
I think he's beautifully harnessed right now, and it started all out with Dave and Slade Acres. I like when the traces and the breast collar and the buggy all make a straight line. It's all one straight line. Sometimes you might see the shafts a little lower, but you see they're at the same angle as the traces and the breast collar. And I think this horse right now is very well harnessed. Let's give Dave a nice round of applause. He brought us a nice horse.
All right, I've got quite a bit of questions here. We've got people flocking over here to me. The one was, if you're going to shy away from something, if you're looking for a road horse, and let's say not necessarily this horse, but if you happen to see one thing that he does that you are like, okay, I'm out on that one, what would it be?
Forging. I don't like a horse that forges.
I like to watch a horse. I really like them to get around the turns good. If they're not really athletic and comfortable enough to go around the turns, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not good enough. If they're not going around the turn, I'm not too much I can do to help that. I think it's my dad used to say, you buy a horse right, he's half sold. Well, if you get one that's, if you buy a horse that's the right kind, he's half made.
One thing that I really want to look for is a good straight-legged horse. You don't want one with a little bit, at least a little bit of crook. Now, there's exceptions to the rule. Some of them can get by that, but most of the time, a lot of the rings we show in, they have pretty tight turns, and if a horse is going around there and you're taking a chance on hitting himself, he just can't get the job done. I mean, that's probably the main thing that I look for.
I agree with everything they said. In addition, I like to see a horse roll up out of the shoulder. A big open moving horse, if they hit their elbows, you're going to usually get in trouble, especially going at speed. So I like to see a horse open through his shoulders. And it's really important that they also have a good show horse attitude, because we are in the show horse business. And besides having the look of a racehorse, you want him to be a show horse too. So the fact that horse was flagging himself going down the track, that was pretty cool. He kind of sets himself apart that he enjoys his job, so that's important too.
Yeah, I kind of agree with everything everybody said. One things I look for, I like to watch their back end. I've seen horses get too much hock behind that. I think a horse with too much hock is struggle trotting around a turn. And I like at their heads. I like a pretty horse. And I think wearing a harness, they have to wear a harness, and the whole look has to come together. But I agree with everything else everybody said on here.
All right, we had one guy, appreciate those answers, by the way. One guy asked, okay, a little more on the martingales. Like, what is the purpose for you guys to use those? What's your purpose for using those, if that makes sense?
I use the martingale for setting ahead, or a little more leverage for the driver. These horses, when I work them at home, I never check one up at home. I check them up when we get to the horse show. I've constantly got them folded over, try to develop the pole as much as possible where they can set their head. And like Steve said earlier, you kind of got to put the martingale where the horse is comfortable. But I usually go with a shorter martingale than probably some people, but that's my reason behind it. I think it gives them, especially if you got an amateur driver, it gives them a little bit more leverage to take a feel of the horse. So.
Well, what he's talking about, the amateur driver, of course, is if you're getting in trouble, if a horse throws his head up or something, they're not going to fall apart. You got to mark it. As I grew showing and working horses, I used the martingale in my early years, maybe a little more, maybe too much sometimes. And I've gotten to where, and I think a whole lot of it is, I think I've got nicer horses than I did back then. But as of late, the martingale's there, and the horses have a light feel of it, but it's not like it's a 45-degree angle, just a nice to make the whole thing flow, like we're talking about one of the traces and all that to roll in a straight line. The bridle doesn't need to, the reins don't need to be in a straight line, but it seemed like I've had more luck lately with it just bending slightly, but maybe that's because I had better horses.
His martingale was really nice. I like that it was the same height as his rings on his back pad. To me, that's kind of perfect if a horse will let you do that. Not all horses will. I have a couple of the Dutch crosses that I have to use pretty short martingales on because they get really big, and that's the only way I can contain them. But most of my standard breds I can use a longer martingale on.
I agree with everything they said. The only thing that, and what Melissa said about the ring being the same height as the ring on your harness, that's always a perfect place to start. And now sometimes I must admit I go a little lower than that ring, but you've got to be very careful because some of these horses will start raising up against that. And when you have one doing that, let it back out because it's just going to get worse.
Well, I agree with everything everybody said, and one of the things that Jimmy said about the loop on the breast collar, the thing you have to realize that when you take that martingale out of that loop, it lengthens that martingale because it not only lengthens it, it spreads it out. So you have to pay attention to where the martingale is in the beginning. But I agree with everything everybody said.
All right, now obviously that horse trotted real nice around the turn up here, but what kind of techniques do you use, or what's the best way if you're having a little bit of a trouble trotting a turn with your horse? What's the best way to teach him to hit that turn the way you guys like to see it?
I'll tell you what, when I get a horse, I've got a bullpen at home that's 50 by 50. I keep him in there till he learns to lean. When he learns to lean, I can just about trot any turn. My arena is 180 by 42. And when I get done with a horse trotting at home, I can trot any ring in the country. But I love to keep them in that bullpen until they learn to lean. And when they learn to lean, you'll be surprised how fast they can trot around you in that circle. And I've had real good luck doing that. And it also helps them get their back end where it needs to be. They can't go around that little turn sloppy. And I start slow, and once they get it together going slow, I get up to a pretty good speed in that little turn. And I mean, them things can be laying down, ear almost touching the ground. You'll be surprised what they can do. But that's the success I've had doing it, is doing it that way.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the key, he said, is start slow. These horses have to learn how to track properly, slowly. That way they don't learn to hit a knee or a crossfire. If you start slow and they get confidence going slow and doing it properly in form, then you can step on up, and like you said, there's no telling how fast you can go, and leaning into the turn is the key.
And I agree with them. I have a bullpen also, and that's where I put them when I first get one. I don't usually leave the bullpen until they're like Steve said, trotting around that turn. One thing I do that's different probably, or I don't know if it's different, but I don't hardly turn my horses loose at home, like as far as speed wise, trotting wise. I kind of work them very slow. I kind of want them to go faster when, I kind of want them to pick up speed. And trotting around the turns at home, I have a narrow arena also, and if they can trot around my arena, they can trot around any turn that we go to. So.
All that, when I get one to either a ring or our arena, which is maybe a little wider than Steve's or Chad's, but still it's not a giant. But I want to drive a horse straight ahead, head straight ahead, and let the wall turn him. The horses, they're not going to run into that wall. When they see the wall, they'll turn, and if you hold their head straight, let them figure it out. And as you go around that turn, I just let the wall turn him, and even in our arena at home, they'll get around there just about as good as they will our outdoor ring. Randy says exactly the same thing. I didn't teach him that. He found that out on his own. He said a great houseman named Glenn Lanning, who he used to work for when I first met Randy, and he couldn't read or write, but he was a brilliant saddlebred horse trainer. And it's saddlebred, standardbred, whatever, a horse is a horse, just like Mr. Ed.
What about the benefits of, okay, some people use square pens, some use them in the round pen. What's the differences of using one or the other, benefits, etc.?
Most of us are using round pins. I'm gonna pass it off because I didn't use the bullpens as much as these other guys, but most of the guys that were around use a round pin. Or if they don't, Steve or any of them, you'll use the round part of it, won't you?
Yeah. Mine is square, but I make it round, like Melissa just said. I make it round. And like I said, if you can get one to trot through that, you can get them to trot anywhere.
Yeah, and like Jimmy said, the benefit of having a square pin that you can make round is that you can also make it square. So a lot of times, especially with under saddle road horses, I really will drive them up into the turns and like Jimmy said, let them turn themselves, because an under saddle road horse to me is harder to get to trot around a turn than a bike horse, just because the bike helps hold them in place. So that's really where that comes in handy.
Well, I agree with everything they said. I don't really have anything to add to that, except these horses, about all of them, look good out here on a mile track going wide open. I tell you what, the trick is to get a horse good in a small area. If you can get him good in a small area, he'll be good anywhere.
How I usually do it, I do what Jimmy says. I really don't turn a horse or a pony when it comes into the turns. They'll turn themselves if you teach them how to do it. The other thing I do is I usually jog in my bullpen to the point where I'll take them in and just walk them in circles in the buggy, because a lot of people, what happens sometimes where a horse won't go around the turn is the shaft is actually hitting him on the rear end somewhere, shape or form, which is pushing him off balance. And that's the thing you have to pay attention to and figure out what to do for it.
All right, now this was a question that was asked Jimmy at the, I believe it was asked at the round table, and I forget your answer, but bungees. Do you guys use bungees?
Sure we do. We do, and we don't. I don't depend on them as much as maybe other people do, but we all use bungees. Just it's good good workout, like people doing isometrics and stuff. It's good for them and makes them flex. But I'm not beholden to them at all. But we do use them, of course.
Yeah, I use them a little. I might go once a week or once every other week with them. I feel like it helps develop their shoulders a little bit more, a little more pop to the front end. But yeah, I don't depend on them.
Same, and the big thing about using bungees or stretchers, as we call them, is don't overuse them. The more you keep them on the horse, the worse it's going to be for you. So, I mean, warm one up with them, and then just don't overuse them. That's the big thing, I feel.
I guess maybe I use them more than a lot of people do, but I long line in them quite a bit. I never hook in them. Now I may warm up with them at the horse show, but I never drive a horse with them on. I never drive a horse in draw lines. I may long line him in draw lines, but I never jog him in draw lines, because they're so easy to teach a horse to rubberneck. But at home, my horses get long line and draw lines, and most of the time bungees.
Well, I agree with everything that everybody says. I used to use them a lot at one time, and I got to the point where I don't really use them at all anymore. And I'll tell you why. It's because when you take those off, your horse changes a lot, and it's not always for the better. So I don't use them at all anymore.
Depends on the horse a lot.
Could you explain the position to sit on a cart and how important and how much you can do just by where you sit on a cart to keep that cart behind a horse?
You don't have, if you want to, you can sit on it. I'm not sure if you can.
I got it. I'm at 240.
Well, the first thing is making sure your stirrups are the right length. Actually, Melissa and I did a video on this for USEF, and it's very simple to adjust your stirrups to the height that you need them. As you see, if going this direction, Melissa has her right leg straight, slid all the way over to the corner, and then some.
I'm light, so I like to go fast. So I get over as far as I can because I feel more comfortable over. Sometimes I even get off the seat and sit on the wood just because I don't want to tip over. And that's the whole purpose of being on the inside of the cart.
And as she would be going around the turn, I always tell my drivers to push all the way on that rail leg, which is their straight leg. So it helps the cart go around that turn.
And if that leg isn't locked, you don't have enough strength. If that leg isn't locked like hers is now, next thing you know, you're going to be over a little bit. Next turn, you're going to be down there in the middle of it. Next thing you're going to turn over. I've seen very few accidents, maybe none, when somebody has their leg locked right. Huh? Well, yeah, I mean, that's true. And as far as this goes, her feet are, she doesn't want to be all the way home, but have a good, comfortable foot in the stirrup. And the knee, this knee's going the same direction as the horse. And I don't think Safe Sport will get you for that. But, point the knee straight ahead, and she's sitting there positioned perfectly. And this is the speed direction. Move over to the other side, Melissa. And then that leg lock too, even though you don't go, it's at full speed the first way of the ring. If that knee isn't locked, next thing you know, your butt's going to be closer to the middle, and that'll cause more accidents than anything else if you don't have that leg locked.
I know
I don't think you're not supposed to. I know it used to be in the rules. I don't know if it is now or not, Melissa. Is it in the rules you can't take your feet out of the stirrups?
Yeah, so the rule is while showing, you cannot take your feet out of the stirrups. Obviously, if you are stopping in the middle to switch directions, you can. But while you're on the rail actually showing, you cannot take your feet out of the stirrups in any road class, whether it be amateur or open, until you line up. And then when you line up, you can disengage your feet. I actually just had to stop a class because somebody, actually it was a rein that was loose, but it's very important for safety because if without that leg locked, you will slide and flip over.
Yeah, I don't know. It used to be in the rule book, even in the lineup, a child in a youth class, juvenile class, could take their foot out of the stirrup. And I was looking for that and I couldn't find it, so something's happened. Now, can you do it now? There used to be a rule, but you couldn't take your feet out of the stirrup in the lineup unless you were in trouble. That has disappeared. Yeah. The traces are wrapped and all that, I'll let Melissa handle, but all that is whatever you need to do to have the traces snugged up, and not so tight and not so loose where they're flopping. And what I've done a lot of times with road ponies is to keep any flopping is most of the road ponies will just have 2 of these. And I'll put an extra one in here for the road ponies so that the traces will stay alongside in that straight line that we've been talking about. I'd wrap it if you need to.
Well, I think when you wrap them, you inhibit their movement of their shoulder because then your breast collar doesn't move with them. So, and also I don't think it's pretty wrapped. This is my opinion, y'all can say something else. So go down to Mr. Bowman's and buy you a pair of these that actually aren't too long and unwrap this one. And when you're a judge, it looks a whole lot better if you don't see the traces wrapped around the shafts. And you can adjust it back here or you can buy a shorter pair.
Wrap it, you can wrap it here in the back.
Another thing you can do too is the inner tube. When you have a flat tire, take it and cut about a 2-inch piece of it, and then put it over your shaft and put one right here, and it'll hold this here, and you can put one right here and it'll hold this here, and it makes everything look so much nicer and slicker.
Yeah, I agree with everything. I don't really much to add to that. Actually, I prefer a little shorter here, and on my carts, I put an extender here, so I can adjust a little bit better that it's not going to get too loose or too tight.
I spend a lot of time with people who think they might have a Roadster prospect, and they want to, let's say, put a short video together to show a trainer or somebody else to say, hey, what do you think about this? How can they make that the shortest, most efficient video so it's not wasting somebody's time, but it really shows off the pluses and minuses of their horse?
Yeah. Kind of like Randy just said, it's got to be a good horse. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's got to be a good horse. I really don't know what else to add to that.
I think we all get a lot of videos, and I kick myself for some of the horses I haven't bought from the videos, but I also want to see them trot a turn, and you know, most of them we get are going up and down a road, and it's nice if we can actually see one in a ring, but you don't have to shoot a ton. I mean, a few clips is great, but if you can show them going around a turn, I think that's great too.
That's about the main thing. I think that would probably sell more horses than anything, is seeing them in a ring and seeing them go around both ways, you know.
Yeah, for sure, but if you make a video, it doesn't need to be too long, it doesn't need to be a full class. We're just trying to decide whether we like the horse or not if we're looking at it. We're not judging him to where you have to see every single thing they do, but of course we want to see him go around a turn nice if they have a place to do that. And stop and stand. I like to see if they stop. This horse stopped beautifully, we looked at, and that was good for all of us, because we like these open horses, but we are in an amateur business.
One quick follow-up. Would you rather see one continuous video or a bunch of little chopped up pieces? I know sometimes folks who don't have the best horses say, oh, use that time they turn the corner, not these other 15 times. And it's sort of misleading for the trainers, but at some point you do want to show off your horse in the best way.
I'm fine either way. I hope I can see through it if they make a lot of stops and cuts on that thing. But I want to, on the other hand, I want to see if I really like the horse or not. And I'll do it, whatever on that. But I don't think it makes that much difference on the other one.
Of course, you'd like to see them going around the ring both ways, but I tell you what, I bought a lot of horses and I went and looked at them, and I just seen a little strip of them going down the Blacktop Road. But you know, you're going to go look at a good one.
Yeah, I think as somebody that's actually trying to sell a horse, obviously you want to put them in the best light. So we make videos all the time, and we obviously do our best clips. And really, you're just trying to get them there to look at your horse, and then they can see everything.
I agree with what everybody said, and I think, like, you go around the turn, it's important. You know, if it's a pretty horse, you're gonna see that.
Yeah, I agree with everybody else that, you know, I don't need to see a long video. If I see a little clip of it trotting around a turn and down the straightaway, it draws my interest to go look at it. I'm going to look.
Do you guys like, just had a guy call me and ask, do you have
I don't want different, I want very fluid, very open motion, I call it pretty motion. I think that's my personal opinion.
Now, Chad's right. I don't like a horse that points a lot, but they have to have good cadence, and I think that's important. If a road horse has good cadence, they'll go a long ways.
It just really depends on the horse. I mean, there's some great choppy going horses that you love, and there's some that are big moving and slower moving. So it just really depends that they move properly.
I just like to see a horse that's got open motion up front. I hate to see a horse up under himself or out or pointing, like Randy said. Those two things there, it's a happy medium there is what I like to see. But there again, like Melissa said, I've had some quick going horses that I really like. I mean, show horse ways will take the place of a lot of things.
I like them all.
I like them.
Is there any other questions? Yep, no, you're good, Wade. By the way, if you guys wonder, this is Wade. He's the photographer, the guy who gets all the good pictures.
Well, I don't know about that. I have good horses to shoot. First, I really did want to thank you guys for being here. I have learned more today in 20 minutes than probably in the last year or so. Something that I run into when I'm all over the country doing a lot of the different pictures, I'll have a guy and he'll say, now what do you think about that one? I'm thinking Memorial Trotting Sale Roadster, what do you think? And I'm like, well, he's 3 days old, so I really can't tell you that much. At what point can you start making decisions or training decisions about a horse? It's obviously not 3 days old, but do you ever just cross them off and say, nope, not that one? How do they make those decisions without keeping 50, 60 horses around?
Well, we came from, well, all of us, really, we all came from more of the saddle horse industry than the road horse industry. And one thing about the saddle horses, we start a fair amount quicker than we start a road horse. I never even thought about showing any kind of a road horse as a 2 or 3 or even 4-year-old. And one horse that we raised in there called Hot Lips ended up winning a class at Louisville, but he wasn't going against anybody at Louisville except Steve. But we started her. We didn't even start long lining or anything until she was after 3 years old. And for what I did to her, she was full standard. I sent her to the track, and I asked the guy to train her down to about 2:15 or something, and he was begging us to race her. But she wasn't even registered. Of course, we didn't race her and brought her home, but that was 3 years old coming forward before we even started her. Whereas a lot of saddle horses have been to a lot of horse shows by then, so they'll go longer, but we end up getting them to the show ring a little later than I do on anything I've been around than our saddle horses.
Probably the only way that I'm just going to say no to a horse if he's got a conformation defect or no quality. I mean, we got to have quality for a show horse. And you know, if he's got those things, he's worth a try. But for me, that's what separates them is quality.
Yeah, I give almost every one of them a chance for a little bit, and then if they don't have a fluid way of moving, like we had spoke about earlier, if they're broken in two or bad behind, that would probably be the first thing that I would look at to pass them on in quality as well. But I will give them all a try for a little bit anyway.
I agree with Melissa wholeheartedly. I usually give them a 30 or 60-day try. If you don't see some kind of improvement, or like she said, if they're broken in behind, then you have to make up your mind which one to do.
Yeah, I agree with them. I usually go 90 days with it, and by that time you kind of know if you're going to have something make it or not.
All right, I think I talked with the boss. He said we've got about 10 more minutes that we can do this, but I really would want to, I've got one more question, and then I want you to think of it'd be interesting for us, of just your favorite horse that you showed that comes to mind, and just give us a small, brief summary. Like, I know for Jimmy it might be divide and conquer, bought him at the trotting sale, worked him this, showed him this was the great part about it. So that's the way I think I want to end this with that. But one question I had before that was, a gentleman just came up to me and he asked, as far as the shoeing on the horse, toe weights, what have you, wedges, I myself have no idea what I'm talking about if I start talking about shoeing. But how important is that to you guys, or how much are you invested in it, or on the shoeing part of it?
To me, shoeing's a lot of it. You can't shoe a horse that's too heavy. You can shoe them too light. You have to find out what the horse can carry, how talented the horse is. It's kind of like a basketball player. I can go out there and play, but I'm not going to hit every shot. But these horses, it depends on how talented they are, how much weight you need to put on them, how they travel. If they're underneath themselves, then you need to put, you might have to change your shoeing that way. So it all depends on the horse in general.
Well, I'm spoiled because I probably got the greatest blacksmith in the world, it's Bud Willman. He shot over 2,000 World Grand Champions, and he spoiled me because he tells me exactly what to do.
I think it's real important. I've done a lot of things with it. If you're going to shoe a standardbred, they're going to be totally different than a cross. So a lot of my standardbreds either will have a very little shoe on behind, or I've even put the shoes on backwards behind so they don't crossfire. But as far as the front shoeing goes, you just want them to have them at a nice, comfortable angle, and I shoe pretty light. And if I need to add weight, I'll usually do it with a 6-ounce piece of lead, either in the toe or the heel, when I get ready to show them. But as far as working them every day, they're shod pretty light and natural.
I'm like Melissa. I like to go light and stay as light as I can. Sometimes you've got to put a little more weight, but it's basically trial and error. I mean, just don't be afraid to try new things. I know that probably 90% of the standardbreds that I work need a flat shoe instead of a toe weight, because most of them want to get up under themselves too much anyway. So I use a lot of flat shoes. A lot of my horses are shod with flat shoes. And like Melissa said behind, I won more class at Louisville. I won the youth class one year with a horse barefooted behind. He was best that way, so that's the way we showed him. But like I said, it's mainly trial and error. Don't be afraid to try things, and you're going to make mistakes, and when you do, just correct them.
Yeah, it's I'm the same way. I'll tell you what, I couldn't believe it the first time I ever heard anybody talk about putting the shoe on backwards, until I put the shoe on backwards on Divide and Conquer behind. And then he had a trouble. He kind of has an even weight shoe all the way around, but they were in front. But the first time I took him to Louisville for the USTA class, he hit both elbows to where they both bled. And we got to scrambling around a little bit there. Did all the things you're supposed to do, and finally we took, and it's Randy probably said it more than anything, more of a pony trick. We cleaned all the leather out of inside his shoe, to where you pick the shoe up and you're looking right at, he's wearing his wedge and his pad, but you're looking right at the frog of his foot. And he hadn't hit an elbow since. And if you wanted to start on our favorite horses. Yep, rock on. I was just talking about it. What else you want to hear?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I was just ready to say, I know there's a lot more questions in the crowd, and a thing I just figured to mention is, you guys probably don't mind it if they walk up to you and ask questions, because you're going to be here. We're going to be driving a couple horses yet, and if you guys have questions, don't be shy. I know sometimes we shy away and we're like, well, it's kind of a dumb question, but don't be shy to go up and ask a question. Each one of these, they've been really kind out here, and we really appreciate them coming out and supporting us. But don't be afraid to ask them questions. They're going to be here all evening and hopefully tomorrow. But go ahead, Jimmy. End it. You guys just kind of highlight of your horse that you've had, a little bit about him, and we'll end it with that.
Well, of course, Divide and Conquer is my favorite horse, but also we had an amateur horse just in the last couple of years, Sean Tour, and he won at Louisville a couple of years in a row. He was a nice horse, and but my favorite, I assume, would have to be Divide and Conquer. He was awful good to me, so I'm going to tout him a little bit. And, that's about all I could say about him. He's been up here a couple of times on exhibit. And, saw Hickey out here showing somewhere. I know he brought him in the sale, but anyway, he's my favorite. Here's
Gosh, I've had a bunch of favorites. I really have, but well, yeah, we had an under saddle horse that I bought from Jimmy here. I think my wife won 11 world titles with him under saddle. A horse called Despite It All. Then I had a wagon horse, Scatmandu. I won 13 world titles to the wagon. But probably a couple of years ago, I won the USTA at Louisville with a horse called Just a Heifer. Ended up selling him, and his name is Juicy Fruit now. Those three right there were probably my favorite of all time.
Yeah, this is a tough one. Everyone's my favorite. I get really attached. I've had some really great standardbreds. We had a great amateur horse called Spill the Ink that won the amateur stakes several times for William Shatner. All Glory was another great one. Where Are We Now? Those are great under saddle horses. I had a great horse called the Secret's Out. He was the only horse that I know of right now that's won the wagon class, the road class, and the under saddle class at Louisville. So I don't know any other horse that ever has done that. But probably my current favorite is Indian Outlaw. He's retired. He's a half standardbred. He was my first wagon horse, so he's pretty special.
Well, I've been fortunate enough to have some nice horses too, but the hardest horse I ever trained in my life was Happy Landing. I won the under saddle class with him at Louisville. And he was a line-bred pacer. And these people sent him to me, and all he did was pace. He paced about this high. And I thought, you know, if he would ever trot, he would be the greatest horse that ever lived. Well, it took me 6 months to get him to trot, and the only way I finally got him to trot is that I would lunge him in bullpen, and my wife had left the fire extinguisher in the middle. Well, I was lunging him, and I fell over that fire extinguisher, and it went off. And when it went off, it went off. And from that time on, he trotted every day of his life.
I have a couple of horses that have been good to me. One was LF Party Guy. I was second at Louisville with him in the, I think it was the Lady Stake, and actually Jimmy's daughter, Jennifer Robertson, which is a great friend of mine, was showing it for me. And the other horse that I think a lot of, his name is Money Mission. I still show him today. He just won the amateur class at the horse show last week. He's a horse that he just gives 100% no matter what he does. He's always going to be the same every day. And those two horses really stand out for me.
Well, we appreciate that. I'm just thinking, instead of flags tomorrow, a couple of the trainers might have fire extinguishers out here blowing at the horses, trying to get them to trot. But thank you. Let's give them a round of applause in appreciation of them coming out. Thank you very much. And again, if you guys have questions, go up, ask them questions. They're going to be around here. And we're going to open up the track right now.